Everyone who is here in person, welcome and thank you for joining us this afternoon. Hopefully all the power failures and all the robots that were out didn't cause too much stress in the traffic. For all those who are online, thank you for joining us. And Rian, thank you for looking after the online audience. It is a little tricky to have people in person and online, but in this case, we're trying to serve both needs. Hopefully you find today enjoyable. We've got 3 speakers lined up. In terms of the agenda, in fact, do you mind just popping to the next slide there, please? In terms of the, just getting us started, we've got the news section by my colleague Sia, then we've got the main presentation by Michael, I'll introduce that a little bit later, and then a BI flash by Anil. So those are the 3 topics we've got. There is some etiquette, particularly for those online. If you've got a question, obviously we might not see you, or Rihanna's looking out for that, so just raise your hand. There is a little note about, put a meaningful name. That's when we're trying to give away that Enterprise DNA prize. We need to know who that person is. But for the in-house people, if you've got a question, obviously just raise your hand. It is meant to be interactive, so relax, enjoy yourselves, and hopefully it's helpful. All right, so in that case, we already started a bit late, so let's jump in. First presentation is the news section. Sia is online at the moment. He'll be joining us remotely. He is hungry for BI news, so he's the right guy to do this this news section. So let's hand it over to Sia, and then we'll move on from there. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you, Sven, for the introduction. I'll be just sharing my screen now. Do let me know when it comes up, please.
You've got it. Thanks.
All right, cool. So as Sven has introduced, I'm Sia. I'll be taking care of you today when it comes to the Power BI user group news and updates. And yeah, welcome to everyone who's joining us online and those who are in person. I believe this is the 4th installment of the user group.
Yes, it is here.
Have been with us since the beginning, and I hope you enjoy the session for today. Okay, so just looking at the news and updates agenda, I've got the news where I'll be looking at topics around some public previews that have been published by Microsoft in the Power BI platform. And then in the updates, we'll be looking at some of the updates that came in August and September 2022 Power BI updates. And again, I won't be really covering the entire updates that's already been done. I'm just going to nitpick on some of the updates that stood out for me there, and I'll just give you some more context around that. And then finally, the other section is basically for those of you who'd like to go to the sources where the news information is coming from for today. That's just for you in terms of interest and having a look at those useful links. Okay, so jumping into the news section. Oh, sorry, I'm jumping the gun. I've already introduced myself. I'm Sia Zungu. Those are my details if you need to get in contact with me. And then now going into the first section of our news session. So in the news, the first topic of discussion that we have there is the horizontal fusion. So the horizontal fusion is something that Microsoft has just recently released on public preview. It's a query performance optimization aimed at processing DAX queries more efficiently. What that means basically is that it's a way of basically Microsoft introducing a way for DAX to compute the queries that are going into the data source a lot more efficiently. So if you just look at in terms of how you get the feature, this is something that you have to go into your preview menu in the Power BI desktop and enable it directly from the preview menu. And then once it's enabled, basically that will be that is everything that you'll need to do there. There's nothing additional that you need to add on. And what it does there in terms of the example that's on the right-hand side is if you're looking at a query like this, where in one DAX measure, you are reading or you are processing a number of columns based on certain filters, based on certain conditions, then each of those queries in a direct query model is processed separately, and each of those is a subquery that hits your data source. Now, that can be quite taxing. As you can see in this example, they're showing some gains where without horizontal fusion enabled, it took the query 23 seconds to actually process and return the result. whereas with horizontal fusion enabled, the same query took 4 seconds. So that's just to kind of show you what kind of gains they've worked with in this particular example. And again, I've only seen that this was highlighted for direct query models. So we still need to obviously get some use cases around. And then at the bottom, there is just a note to inform you that to get this feature enabled, you need to go into the preview settings and enable it there directly. Okay. The second topic in the news, we've got the multiple audience for Power BI apps. So for some of you who might have seen, there has been some changes to the service. And one of the big changes that has been made recently is around how you update or create apps. So in this case, when you've got a report published into Power BI, you would then create an app, which is what you would use to expose it to the audience that would interact with that particular report. And what they've done now is they've tweaked the process of how you go about including or excluding certain groups from seeing either one or more resources that are part of that app. And I like what they did here, because now this gives you flexibility to determine with the use of an audience group, you can now
keeps losing like 5 seconds. Okay, we're going on 5. At what point do you jump in and say?
Is anyone else?
Yeah, we can't hear you.
this is a nice way to control. Hello, Sven.
Yeah, sorry, we're losing you. We've lost about 20 seconds.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay, so I'm just gonna back up a bit just to say, in terms of the audience, this is a good way that Microsoft has now released this feature to allow you to determine what audience can see. So in this example, you'll see that there's an app that has been published and there were certain audience groups that were set up. And there's an audience group that is only going to see retail reports, which is
Sia, we've lost you again, I'm afraid. Can you hear us? No bother.
That's all I have to say about that, right?
Yes. Yeah, it must do it in the back end because it does use RLS for audiences, but we haven't tried it out yet, so everyone's. Anil, yes, it does use RLS in the background, but we haven't actually tried it out yet. Sia, I see your screen is back. Did you drop off and come back again? I think we're having trouble with Sia's connection. All right. Sia, last chance. Otherwise, we're going to probably have to touch back later on. Okay, so let's do that. All right. Just a quick change in program. Due to technical reasons, Michael is up next. Let me just quickly introduce him. Michael Johnson actually doesn't need much introduction. He's been a part of this user group for a very long time. Well known in all the BI circles and the SQL environment. He's the MVP of data platforms, user group leader of the data platform, and previously the SQL user group for what, 10 or 15 years at least. So we're very privileged to have him present today. The topic is part of a series. The series started in January. If you might recall that Stefan and Rian did their best to do a terrible job at basically doing a report for us, and then the aim was for us to then poke holes at it and then improve on it through the rest of the series. So they had to work hard to make a bad job of it, but in the end they did so. And the first session thereafter was done by Adrian. He did the Power Query ETL phase of this series. After that, Tsecho did the data modeling section. The last session was mine. I did the introduction to DAX section, and now Michael is doing the more advanced side of things. There is one more talk in the series, which will be in November. We are looking for a volunteer for that. I will talk about that later on, and it's more about the final step, which is visualization and so on. Okay, So at this stage, let me hand it over to Michael. In fact, let me just say one more thing. This is a more advanced talk. If you are new to the user group, we don't always have hardcore heavy talks, so don't be put off. In this case, it happens to just be a little bit more serious than normal.
It's not going to be that hard.
Right.
DAX is hard enough. We don't have to complicate our lives, right? All right, thanks everyone. Welcome. Okay, so as Sven gave a little lineage on the idea, we've been taking this file and passing it on. So this is what Sven sent me the other day, and we're going to sort of use this file. Can you'll let me know if they can't hear fine, right? So what we're going to do is it's called master, right? But I want to avoid that because there's no such thing when it comes to DAX. None of us know what we're doing. But if you can't solve the problem, you just wrap another layer of calculator around it, right? It doesn't matter how many years you've been doing it, that's what you do. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through some use cases, and we're going to use this fictitious scenario of my boss wants this, right? So we've got two asks that my manager wants. The first thing he wants to know is we want to know what is the top product, right, for a given category or something, right? So we're going to go and solve that problem. We're going to go through a couple of ways. We're going to do it wrong. I'm a big believer in making mistakes because that's how you learn. So we're going to go that way, and then we're going to sort of try to make it better, hopefully figure out what went wrong with that initial approach. And then we're going to create a second measure, which is a somewhat contrived measure, but I have kind of seen them out in the real world. And we're going to say, well, we want to go and sum up the values for all daily sales that are greater than 100,000, right? So you're just summing up the bits that are greater. So I don't want to sum the smaller bits, which is a little bit of a odd thing, but it's there because I want that to lead us into a performance discussion, right? Now, something to note on this performance discussion, this file is 3 megabytes. You will not have performance issues. You can almost write the worst DAX you can think of. It's not going to be slow at this size. DAX is just amazingly fast over this kind of data set. So we're going to be really fine-tuning another 0.2 milliseconds out of this query, but we're going to do it. Okay. So the first question we were going to ask was how to go and grab the top, the top product for a given category. So what I like to do with DAX, and this is where DAX gets pretty hard, is that unlike other languages, we tend to see those intermediate steps, right? So if you think about SQL, and I've got a subquery or a SQL query, no, you may not.
I just realized I didn't tell you about the prize.
All right.
Which means I do have to
I'm getting a prize. I like this conversation.
Okay, sorry. I actually missed it. I meant to, apologies. I meant to say that we always give away a prize at the user group session. Sometimes we give it away randomly. Other times we give it to the fastest person who answers the question first. And in this case, we're going to do it that way. So please, during Michael's presentation, pay attention, okay? Because at the end of Michael's session, I'm going to ask a question. And the fastest person in the audience to put up their hand, I will then ask them. If they're right, they win the prize. At the same time, Rian is going to look after the online people. They're going to type in the answer. And if he says someone online got it before someone here in this room, remember, I'll say to you, yes, Stefan or whomever, you can answer. Then they will win the prize. The prize is an Enterprise DNA course voucher. It's worth $500, and it's well worth obviously trying to win the thing. So as I said, just pay attention to Michael's session, and we'll ask the question at the end. All right.
Alrighty. Cool. No worries. I just need to share my screen. Zoom is not my screen app of choice, so just let me know if it's there. In fact, I should be able to see it right there, right? If I was facing the right direction, I wouldn't have this problem. How do I make this go away in this view? Put that somewhere where it doesn't matter. All right, okay, so we've got this file that we got from the last session. Did we publish these files at all? Not really, okay. Well, sorry, you guys can't have a look. But essentially, we have this model that we've put together. It's a basic star. So if we go sort of look at our sort of modeling view, we get that star sort of pattern. We don't shape it like a star anymore. It's a very common convention. Put your facts in the bottom, your measures at the top, so we can see that all the relationships should flow down. If you see relationships flowing up, it's what you might call a code smell. Okay, probably not a good thing. Maybe it's justified, but probably not. Okay, So we're going to go and create this a sort of visual. And as I was saying, where DAX gets difficult is that you don't get to see those intermediary steps. You know, if you think about SQL, I can go and create that subquery, and I can run that subquery, and then I can see what would go into it, and then I join it onto other things, and I can see those intermediate steps. DAX doesn't really have that. Everything kind of just happens in our, in this magic space, right? I was like visualizing what I'm trying to do. So I'm going to start by creating a very sort of basic idea of what that is. So I'm going to go and grab my, let's go and grab a matrix. And I know somebody put a style in here, so I'm probably going to have to go and get rid of it. So I'm going to go and grab a, sorry, Power BI is difficult. I've only been doing it for 10 years. I don't know how long's Power BI been around. Long time. Okay, and I'm going to go and grab a measure. Total sales. Okay. And this is where the style is there, so I need to go back there and okay, there we go. Okay, so somebody created a little theme in there that hides the expansion options, which I wasn't sure. I thought maybe my version of Power BI is old because I used to be running an old version of Power BI. But anyway, okay, so this is a basic sort of matrix visual. So what we'd expect to see, if I go and expand this, I'm going to go and sort it, right? What I want to know is for a given category, what is the top selling product? Okay, and there's a number of ways we can solve this problem. And the first way that you might think about it is I'm going to go bring in a rank function. Has anybody heard of rank? Does anybody want to tell me what rank is?
Ranking, basically whatever you talking whether in top down or down up depends.
So what we're going to do is we're going to go and assign a number. So remember, DAX uses this, or Power BI uses this idea of a measure. I'm going to create a measure that's then going to go and give each one of these a number. So the biggest one is going to get number 1. The next one's going to get number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So that is a weight. And then if I'm looking for the biggest product in each category, what is that biggest product then? It's where the rank is number 1, right? So that's my initial approach. Maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong. Okay, so let's kind of see what's going on there. I'm going to go into my product. I'm going to go and create a measure here. We're going to get to this just now. And I'm going to go and create product rank. Okay. I also can't spell, so if you see me spell badly, don't worry about it. We will hopefully fix that up. It's only when you spell the bad stuff. Okay, so the rank function is pretty easy. We're going to go and use a rank, and you'll notice everything is essentially rank X. Okay, so that X means iterate over a list of values. So what do I want to rank? And in this case, I want to rank the product, right? So product is the table, column name is product. I'm going to go and rank that. So rank X. I'm going to go and expand that. So you'll see that when you actually, IntelliSense will actually tell you exactly what this function is looking for. So rank X function is looking for a table, an expression. Then I have a couple of optional parameters being the value, okay, the order, and then ties, right? So do I want dense rank or not dense rank? What is not dense rank called? Skip value, something like that. Yeah. Okay. So obviously we want to go and run something like we're going to go and say all selected. I'm going to go and grab the product table, and this is going to go and give me a list of. If you think about that imaginary data set that I told you, it's that list of products. So this is why I want that, because it's this bit right here, right? And I can even do that, right? So it's going and giving you that imaginary table here. Okay, so we've got this imaginary table, okay? And then we need to go and sort it by something, right? So what is that thing that we want to sort? And we're going to go and sort by our sales amount, right? Total sales. So we're saying for each product, rank it by that. And we're going to go and the order. The order, yes. So then you get the sort of values. You can say order can be descending, and then you can say what happens with ties. I can do dense or skip. So dense, just for those who don't, means it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, or let's say there's a tie, right? So then it's 1, 2. Let's say the second and third we're tied. Then it's 1, 2, 2. Then it'll be 3. Okay, versus skip, it'll say 1, 2, 2, 4. Okay, so if you're a golf kind of player, that often happens in golf. Okay, so that should sort us out on that. And this being an optional parameter, we're not going to really need it. And I'm going to go and add that to my measure. And let's go and add that measure to my report. So here you can see that we've basically got this rank. So you can see that the largest item is sorted 1, 2, 3, 4. And just to show you that it's not some fluke of just the ordering, if we go and sort these things alphabetically, then you can see that we get that rank follows them. It's not like in Excel where you're just putting 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Okay. Now, first kind of problem with usability is, can you see how we've also got these? Go. Okay. Can you see how even the category has a rank of 1? Now, that is not correct. Logically, we are not ranking categories. It should not have a rank. Okay. So when we're creating these measures, we actually want to make sure that they're usable by our clients. So we're going to go do a little bit of house cleaning, right? So I'm going to quickly go here, and I'm going to say if. Okay, so if is now saying, if this condition is true, then do that, else do something else. So we're going to say if is in scope. Okay, so is in scope says that a filter is on this value. Okay, so here there is no filter on product because product isn't part of that thing. Only the categories in product. Sven discussed that idea of scope last time. Does that kind of make sense to everybody? I appreciate you're very new, so maybe not. But it's not. I'm not considering it. Okay, so it's not. But it is in scope over here. If I look down, okay, well now it's swearing at me because it doesn't like my bad expression. So let's just go and finish that. So we're going to say if the product is in scope, then I want it to return the rank. Else, I don't want it to return that rank, right? Just go and make that nice. There's a wise fellow named Alberto Ferrari that tells you if your DAX isn't formatted correctly, it's not real DAX. Okay, and go enter. Okay, so now you can see that these values have now disappeared. Okay, so I can then go and expand it. So I can get I can now sort by my rank if I wanted to. And you can see that I've got that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Now I only want to go and get the ones. How can I do that? How slow am I? Because in your head this has happened so quickly, and then you talk. It's like, oh my God, how am I still speaking about this 5 minutes after? So I'm going to start speaking quick. So we can actually apply visual level filters, right? That's probably the easiest way. Remember, I said this isn't the best way. It's the easiest. It's our best first step. So I'm going to go to this visual. I can see the visual tabs, and I can, on this product rank, I can see I am only interested in the visual rank where it has the value 1, right? So now I have all of these values, but it kind of looks weird in this matrix. So I'm going to turn that into a table now. Okay, remember I use the matrix for visualization, but now I can see that for accessories, the best-selling product is the Hitch Bike 4 series, and the total sales is 329. But what is the problem with that number? If I think about the category, is the category sales 300 and something bucks, or is it this product? Because my question is, I want to look at the category and I want to know what the top performing product is. I don't want to know the sales for that top performing product. I want to know the sales for the category, but I also want to know the top performing product of the category. Have I answered that question? No. Okay, so this isn't a great approach. All right, so we're going to go for a plan B, something called text measures. Has anybody ever heard of a text measure? Because traditionally, when we use a measure, we return a number. And usually it's a simple aggregate. So we sum things up, we count them, min, max, those kind of things. But we actually want to return text sometimes. And I'm not talking about the max of strings, right? Then, Zimbabwe always comes last in the list of countries, right? What we actually want to do is we want to, based on the order, so given a product, go and tell me which one is the most. So we're going to use that same sort of concept. I'm going to go and create another little table, because again, you want that sort of working visual. And you go there, I'm going to go and add my category. I'm going to go and add my sales amount. And okay, and then we're going to go and create a brand new measure called top product, right? Does that sound the hardest thing about DAX is knowing what to call your measures. That is the truth. So with that, you always want to create your measures as short a name as possible, but succinct enough that people know what they mean, okay, which is a failing art. I haven't managed to do it yet, but that's what the sort of documentation is for, right? Okay, so we've got another function called top n. Okay, and what top n can do is it can take a table or a subset, and it can order these things, and then I can return the top number of rows, which also describes kind of what I want to do. So what I'm saying is, you know, per category, go and grab me all of the products, and each one of those is its own little subtable. Then sort that little subtable, make sure that the top sales amount goes to the top, and then give me the first row. Okay, so that solves that same question, right? So I'm going to start from the inside out. Problem with DAX is DAX actually you start there and you're building out, so it doesn't tend to be a forward-only language. But we're going to go and use the top n function. Top n, okay, and top n takes a couple of parameters. It takes a n value. So how many things do you want? How many values for the top? One, easy enough. Okay, then we need to give it a table. So I'm just going to make that pretty easy for myself. I'm going to say values, go and give me the product. So this is going to go and give me the products. Then I want the order by expression. Okay, so I want to order by a sales amount, total sales. And then I'm going to want it descending because I want the biggest, not the smallest. And then close. And that's going to give me a table back. But what do we know about a measure? Measures can never return tables. Huh? Oh, okay. Well, that's fine because it'll fail. I can't return this. This is exactly my point. Okay, I cannot return a table from a measure. I can only return a scalar value. Scalar values can be a word, a number, a boolean, date, okay, but it cannot be a table in itself, right? So I now need to go and convert this into a table. And for that, there's a function, another function, called concatenatex. Okay. And did I just get booted off the network? I did. I think I should really give you presenters more than half an hour of guest access. No worries. We're going to do this as long as it's going to be quick. Huh? Hopefully it's going to be quick. Well, and the guest access. So, well, I'm back on the internet. So, join from browser. That doesn't seem like the right thing to do. Was that the sign up taking too long? That's one way to get me off. Try that video. I don't know if you're going to have to make me an admin again or if got it. Okay, and share screen. Go away. Share. All right, and that is our Zoom link. Okay, so we've got this. We're going to take this concatenate x. Now remember the x functions, iterative functions, means it's going to take in a table and it's going to iterate over that table. Now what table are we going to give it? Well, it's this value over here, right? So this is our first parameter. Okay, and we're going to pass through the next one. So what is the expression that we're going to go and grab? I'm going to go and grab the sort of product. And then I'm going to go and grab a delimiter. And why a delimiter? Because what happens if there is a genuine draw? Okay, so it is possible that top one could return 2, top one won't. But if I said top 5, I would have more than one record. So how do we want to delimit that x? So I can limit that because just for expediency. But generally, you would want to say comma. Let's just do it for sort of completeness. Ordered by expression. Again, this is not not really a problem because my thing's only coming back with one value. I can go descending. These are all optional parameters, so I really didn't actually have to do that. And that should give me a value. So I'm just going to clean that up. I'm going to say go. And then a good world, because DAX is always right the first time. we're going to go and add that value. So here you can see that we've got essentially those same values. So for, if you think, let me do it that way because I'm not, accessories, I can see that I've got the Hitachi bike rack. But now I can see that I've got the total sales for the category and not just sales for that single value. Okay, so you can kind of see we took two different approaches. Okay, or we took one approach that seemed logical, but didn't come out with the approach we got. And I find that's what DAX is about, or Power BI is about. You got to validate these numbers because we make assumptions. And I'll tell you, the biggest thing, your measure is going to work until somebody comes with a new crazy filter combination. You know, he's filtered out Saturday, something that you just never really thought somebody would do, and you don't know why your measures aren't working. Okay, so that's a really simple little measure. It's been how long over? 10 minutes. 10 minutes. All right. Okay. So we have to be super quick. Okay. The next calculation is I'm going to go through and calculate the. Yeah. No, that's all right. I can talk for a long time. Yes, you do. No, you don't. I can talk forever. All right. Okay. So the next question is I'm going to go and count the number, or I'm going to sum up all the sales or daily sales where I had more than 100,000 rands worth of sales. Okay, so again, exactly where I like starting, you always create a sort of this visual in your head. I'm going to go and grab the calendar and we're going to go and bring in the date. And I'm also going to do, Sven's wondering why this is here, and I'll get to that in a sec, although I might not get there. And I'm going to bring in the total sales amount. Okay, and what I essentially want is a measure that's going to return me all values that are greater than 100. So what I often do is I actually end up creating a new little measure, and we're going to call it daily greater than 100K. I think that's a moderately reasonable name. With some really bad spelling, and I told you. What I often like to do is I actually just create a value once so I can add to my visual. So before I've even done any thinking, now just so I can see it. And essentially, I want these values to be 0, and I want that value to be 100, right? So then I can start adding them all up. Okay. So in order to do that, I need to essentially iterate over all the rows in the table. Well, the first mistake I'm going to make is this, actually. I'm going to say if the total sales is greater than 100,000, then total sales, right? Okay, and this kind of looks right at first because it's giving me that value I wanted. But if I bought in on this value, I'm going to convert you to a matrix again, and I'm going to go and bring in the year month. Okay. I'm going to expand one of these guys. Can you see how that value, okay, is the same? Okay, it's not formatted. It should have been that one. Okay, but you can see that just looks terrible. But those values are the same. So I haven't aggregated what I wanted. I've identified the correct day, but it's not answering that number correctly at a different grain. So how do I do that? Because it is correctly evaluating that. It says, this day is 100,000, therefore there's 100,000. This is 1.4 million, therefore I'm showing it. If the month had less than 100,000, it wouldn't have shown. And this is because this query is being evaluated for every line, right? So Power BI is figuring out what that thing, and it's applying the same logic here as it is to the daily amounts. But I need to make this evaluation at a daily level. How do I do things daily? And I've already done it. What class of functions? Iterator functions, okay? X functions. All right. So we can go and use that X function. Let's go and find those. That's my sneaky little measure right there. Okay. So I know that I need to invoke some sort of function. So I'm going to use the SumX because I want to sum these values up. Okay. And then I need the table I'm going to step through, and I'm going to use values, calendar, date, right? So this is going to say for each day, go and perform this calculation. Okay, and this calculation is going to be this. I'm going to do this just for, I'm going to say sum, Sales amount. Thank you. It's a bit obvious when you do it this way, but we're gonna make another mistake now, right? And I think that'll work. Oh, I got too many closed brackets. Okay, so here you can see that we've now going to change this measure, but this value is different. So it's changed. So I've done something. Have I done something correctly though? I'm going to go and add little commas to that. So you can see that, well, my total value, I shouldn't point at the screen, is 1.4 million, but now all of a sudden I'm getting 44 million. So how can something that sums of less than be greater than the whole thing? And who wants to know why that happened? Who knows why that happened? And you should know that because I went and corrected my formula, making it bad again. Okay, and this is, so last week when Sven told us about the magic of calculate, he told us calculate can do two things. So the first thing that calculate can do, it can change the filter context, right? Either removing it or replacing it. The second, it can also change a relationship. So using an inactive relationship instead of an active relationship. But the third thing it does is it changes a row context into a filter context. Now, what I've got here with the SUMX function, I've invoked a row context. And when I use a function like sum, the true definition of sum, it says sum up all the values in this column under the current filter context. Do I have a filter context at this moment? No, I have a row context. Okay, so what I need to do is turn that row context into a filter context, and the easiest way we do that is
Sum X.
No. So we've already got the row context going. We're going to use the calculate function. The calculate. So you can actually use the calculate function. Calculate like that, right? So no, absolutely no parameters. All we're saying is just wrapping it around with another calculate. Calculate. Going to do another one over there. Okay, and we see these values. All of a sudden, this value looks a little bit better. We see the 100,000 over there, and there's another one further down the list. So this value is now correct. So we are now calculating this correct. Okay. Now there's a nice little trick, and you kind of saw me undoing it there. Okay. I've had to go and wrap this and calculate. But if you have this as a measure already, you don't have to go and replace it because a measure already has an implicit calculate wrapped around it, right? So I can go and use the total sales measure instead of doing that calculate. Way too many. Yeah, right. So that's a more succinct reason. So there's two reasons you want to use measures, right? The first is that it comes with that implicit calculate, which makes your code easier to read, but you also get reusability, right? Okay, because sometimes, imagine you've been working on a set of measures for a whole bunch of time and you have something like sales amount. And then your boss comes to you and says, well, actually, we need to add sales tax to that, all right? And now you've got 500 visuals spread across 30 different reports. You imagine opening up each one. But if it's a measure, all that logic, all that business logic is encapsulated in that measure, and I just need to make one little update, and it updates all my reports. Okay, so those are the two big selling points of DAX, right? Cool. And shall we sneak in one little performance thing, and then we'll go. Okay, so we've sort of gone to create two basic measures, but sometimes measures are really, really slow. Now I said this one's not going to be slow, but let's just go and see. So I'm going to go and create this daily reports measure, and I'm going to go and grab in my sales report. Now, often what happens is a user comes to you and just says the report is slow. Okay, I mean it means nothing to you. When is it slow? What measure specifically slow? But we can't tell what is actually slow. Now, Power BI actually has a really nice tool, and Zoom is not going to make it easy to use because I need the banner. So I'm going to first thing I'm going to do is bigger is I'm going to go and add a new tab. And the reason for that is when I switch between pages, so I'm going to invoke a profiler, which it's actually got a little tool that's going to look in the back end, it's going to calculate all the things that are happening. So I'm going to go and do that. I'm going to go View. I'm going to enable Performance Analyzer. So Performance Analyzer goes and records everything, and I'm going to tell it to start recording. Okay, so this thing is now recording, and I'm going to go to the page that is slow. All right. Now my page isn't really slow. It's got 2 little measures, but work with me here. All right. This is the fantasy section of this talk. Okay, so we've gone to this item, and you can see that 2 visuals got loaded because we have 2 items. I'm going to go and stop that Performance Analyzer, and we can look at these visuals, and we can see that there's a couple of pieces. There's a DAX query, a visual display, and an other. Okay. Now, when it comes to performing sort of performance tuning your visuals, there's almost nothing you can do about the visual display, right? That is just what's happening within Power BI. The DAX, you can optimize the DAX. Then there's this other portion, which you actually can't do much about, okay? But you will often see that's the biggest number. And if you see that number very high, the simplest solution is to have less visuals on your page, because that is often the result of things like multi-threading, right? If you think in an abstract world, which pretty much means you've got too much going on. It's just a bucket of other things. Okay, so we're interested in these 2 DAX components. You can see that this one took 6 seconds, this one took 3 milliseconds, right? Okay, as I said, we're splitting hairs here. I would honestly not go and performance tune a measure that takes 6 milliseconds. It's performing fantastically well, but it's twice as bad as my other measure, right? So we're going to go and have a look at that, and there's a couple of tools that help us out with that. So I'm going to go and copy this query. Then I'm going to go to external tools. So external tools are other tools that non-Microsoft people have built to help you sort of build your models. So we're going to go and fire that up. And okay, and this tool is going to go and automatically connect to our sort of visual, and we're going to go and work with it. Now I've copied that visual, and this is essentially going to go and grab the code that runs on that visual. So you can see that the daily sales, blah, 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 and I want to go and run it. So I can quickly go and say run. Okay, that'll give you the answer. The answer is not particularly helpful. What I really want is the query plan and the server timings. Okay, so the query plan is going to show you what the engine is doing behind the scenes. Now, I'll be honest, it's not even easy to read like SQL plans, and SQL plans aren't really easy to read, but it's going to give us some hints. So if we're going to go and run that process again, okay, I can then go and see my server plan, make that a little bit bigger, and we can see that it's got all of these little steps that are running, right? So we're going to try and figure out exactly what they are. And my screen at home is a little bit bigger, so let's just try and use that guy. This guy's a bit easier to read. Okay, so what's happening here is it's actually running. Can you see it's got this some vertipack step over here? And it's also running that same step over here. So in line 6 and line 14, it's running that step. What do you think's happening there? Am I going to do this? So another nice little thing. So if I want to go, the query that we're going to performance to is our sales report. My badly spelled word. I'm going to say define that measure, right? So this is the definition for that measure. Can you see here, I'm going to calculate the total sales amount here. And then if that is correct, I go and calculate it again and then return that to the user. So it's doing that step twice. So that is not an efficient use of resources. So come, I want to say about 2017, they introduced this idea of variables. Variables help us to temporarily store values so that we can reuse them. Okay, so before I do that, I'm also going to look at my server timings. You remember, I had a little screen that showed us the from our horizontal fusion. Okay, we're going to look at the same kind of stuff. And there's 2 engines within Power BI Vertipack. There's the storage engine, there's the formula engine. Storage engine, incredibly fast, but incredibly stupid. Okay, it can do 2 things. It can aggregate numbers and it can filter. Okay, it doesn't like complicated logic. It doesn't like if statements, it doesn't like switch statements, it doesn't like all of that weird stuff. Okay. For anything that requires a little bit more thought, we get the formula engine. Now the formula engine is single-threaded, it's slow, it's also a secondary function. So what we want to do is make sure that as much work is happening in the storage engine as possible, and less is happening in the formula engine, right? Okay, so that's the bedrock of, we're not going to go into that right now, there's just not time, but we're going to make that number over there smaller, 6. That is our goal, okay? Again, I would be ecstatic with 6 milliseconds in production, all right? But work with me here. So we're going to go and use this idea of this variable, and we're going to come back into our DAX statement, and let's see if, essentially we've got this iterator, and let's just go and space it there so we get the values, and then this statement over here, this if statement, is where all of the work happens. All right, so I've got this row context going, and it's in this row context I want to create this variable. So I'm going to say var, and I'm going to say tell you I can't spell. Okay, and I'm going to say that that is equal to my total sales measure. Okay. So I've now declared that variable, and I've set its value. So it's going to go and calculate the total sales value, and then I'm going to then go and return, and then I need to go and the function I'm going to replace. So instead of now referring to that measure, because that would actually cause it to be calculated for a third time. So I'm going to go and replace my 2 calls for total sales with a single call to that guy. And I can then go and run it. So I'm just going to go and now the way this works in DAX Studio is I can go and change the definition without changing it in the model. I can see what that value is going to do, right? So, but it only happens in that query scope. So if I run this, okay, it's not okay, and then I'm going to run that, okay. So this bit will run. You can't actually run that first bit. It's going to run it, but it's still going to use the old version of this calculation. I need to run it in a single definition. And then the final thing we need to do when performance tuning. Huh?
You have one extra bracket.
Yeah, it doesn't like that. Right there, go it. Value some X, yeah, that should be good. Right. Okay, so when we go and run that sort of calc, we need to make sure that we clear the cache, right? So Vertipack has a small cache where it can cache little results. We need to make sure that that's clear, because otherwise the first time we run it, it's going to be slow. The next time is lightning fast, and we think, hey, this change I just made really did well. It actually did nothing. It was just the fact that you ran it a second time. So we can tell this, we're going to tell it to always clear the cache on run. So it goes and clears the cache, and then it reruns that command. So you remember we were running at 6, okay? And if all is right with the world, what did I? So max values dates. Sorry, I lost an if statement. That's what happened. IntelliSense is terrible. Okay. Yeah, there we go. So that's what happened. Yeah, I obviously pushed tab and it deleted the next word.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Why don't you calculate with filter? Why the if? Huh? Calculate the sum x and the amount, but with filter greater than instead of.
So filter invokes another iterator, right? So that when I use a filter function, I'm invoking that, but I'm trying to show you the variable, not the filter function. I'm not suggesting this is perfect code, but variables are probably one of the best things you can do, okay? Because you're halving the workload, right? So we should, if all was right with the world, we're actually going to get a faster type from 6 to 5. I mean, that was right? Okay, but you can see that we've got also a lot less steps, right? So if I go and run that again, excuse me, what happened to my query? Okay, it's obviously haunted. So if I go and run that guy again, you can see we've got 3 steps, right? So 2 steps instead of 3 steps, that's could be 50% less work, okay? And that can really be the difference between a well-performing report and a poorly performing report. There are almost always better ways, and the point he's making is actually very good, because what did I tell you? Should we make that the price? But then you can't. Maybe you can win it.
No, I donated to someone.
So can this be the price question? All right. What was it going to the price question going to be? Okay.
No.
Why was his suggestion better than mine?
I mean, the if versus the filter.
If versus the filter.
I am monitoring the chat here. If anyone would like to answer.
The answer's up on screen.
Or you could even
Or
unmute
we
and answer.
discussed it up on screen. And it came to do with Vertipack and its engines. And one being stupid and one being smart.
Would it be, sorry, I
Yes,
realized I
correct.
was just working. No, you could do it now.
Oh.
So there's a
What?
Okay.
Would it be anything to do with the iterations and the fact that you are using a number of the actual engine uses, I think you said it's a single
Not
thread.
the iterations, but remember I said there's, I mean, it's, yeah, so are you winning something? Okay. Cool. So well and more, but yes, so essentially what filter is doing, I told you that the storage engine is good at two things. It's good at aggregating, it's good at filtering. Filter is going to apply that filter, so I get to stay in the storage engine. If I bring in that if statement, I have to move the work into the formula engine, right? Now at this scale, it's actually not going to make much difference, but over a big data set, you will start seeing those performance gains. Right?
Sorry, could you just repeat that?
No. What did I just say? Okay.
Move it to the filter engine.
Yes. Okay. So the question was, if I can solve the problem with a filter statement, is that not better than using the if statements? And yes, it is, because those if statements can only be resolved inside of the formula engine, and the formula engine is slow, versus the filter statements can actually be resolved in the storage engine, and the storage engine is fast.
Which
So
is
I want,
actually virtual table we create, the filter.
yeah,
It is.
it's actually kind of weird. It uses a bitmap and it actually removes stuff from the filter using a bitmap, and it's kind of crazy. But it's yes, that it is a virtual. That's the table inside your head that you have to remember.
Janine here on the call is asking, does filter remove half the data set, whereas if has to be applied to every row?
So remember, we've invoked this iterator. Okay, so it's going to happen on every row anyway, but it can just move that work slightly to the one engine. And this is not a great example for that, but again, it's just moving that work through to the storage engine.
And you can also do it on a dimension, and then you've got far less to filter than on a laptop.
If possible, but the criteria was the sales per day. So I was always going to have to go to my fact table. But if you can apply that filtering to my dimension first, filter my dimension, and then have that filter properly, yes, then that would be great. Yes. Why not? So that's fine. Okay.
All right, so Warren, are you the winner?
I guess Warren's the winner.
Okay. I need you to address the number. Yeah.
Sure, no problem.
It's worldwide. Follow data.
Cool.
We learn.
So that is that. Now, again, I could go on forever. So so you really want to have a look at these tools because there's so many things that they can do. There is also a tabular editor, which I can show you stuff there, but I think that's probably enough for today. And then questions on kind of what I show you. I know I didn't show you too much DAX. So I think we covered DAX nicely 2 months ago. But I'm hoping that you've kind of seen the thought process. And that idea of trying to visualize what you see, and DAX Studio can actually be a very nice tool for that, because we can actually go and write those queries that return those tables, and then I can see those tables before I then go and sort of compress them again to return that scalar value. So if you want to see those intermediate steps, this can actually be a very nice tool for that. Cool. Thanks. I think that's it.
Well done. While you're busy closing up there. Sia, if you can just get yourself ready, we're going to try the news again, or the second half of the news, and then we will go into Anil's presentation. So there's 2 more parts to go. As I'm just curious,
Sure.
if I had asked my original question, which is, if you're using rank X and you want to remove the rank from the category, what function do you use? Warren again. Okay, yes? No.
Then it gets you in.
We're trying to get rid of the rank on the
Is
category.
in scope.
Yes, Sia would have won the prize. Okay, I didn't see the answer. Talking there, yes. Is in scope is the right answer. Okay. but you have to be taking notes to get that one done. Anyway, okay, cool. Sia, it sounds like you're good to go. First of all, let me just say thank you to Michael for that presentation. DAX is an amazing language. It can be very basic, very advanced, in some cases very confusing, but just take it in steps, Google it, ask a friend, but it's unbelievably powerful. So it's worth just continuing on your journey, whether you're starting at the beginning or whether you've learned this and probably forgotten it and now you have to relearn it. That's how it goes. Okay, over to you, Sia. Thanks.
Thank you, Sven. Just let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes, thanks.
All right, so before I got cut off, I was talking about the audience groups that are now introduced in the new workflow of how we publish apps. So that basically then allows you to define different audience groups that will see different artifacts that are in that workspace that you are publishing. All right, and then these are just some considerations to take into account to say with the new updates, you will see that there is no longer or rather they've grayed out the section to include in app, that toggle that you would do in the workspace. Now that is handled in this workflow under the content section. And in there, that's where you will then add different items like the reports or dashboards that you want to share with the different audience groups. And then also in terms of pending requests, that's basically to say, you know, a request will be pending for someone who needs access to that app until they are associated with a particular audience group, if you've defined those audience groups. And then the last one is about that by default, any new content that gets published into the app by default is invisible until the app author goes into the app and makes it visible for the different audiences that they want to see. Okay. Then just coming into the Power BI update section, covering one of the updates that was pulled from the August 2022 updates is the matrix visual and some of the improvements that have been done to this particular visual since it launched. Now, in terms of what you can do, and this you can do both in the service and in the Power BI report, but what's now new in the Power BI report is that you can link to matrix that have been published into the service and actually bring those either as a visual into your report or bring the entire scorecard into your report. And also there are just some considerations to take into account with this functionality is that it doesn't work for platform as a service because it needs someone to actively sign in with an account. So it doesn't work with anonymous account or anonymous embedding. Another thing is that the visual doesn't support cross-filtering, so you can't select a point in the visual, the matrix, and expect it to filter your report content. And then lastly, you can't connect matrix to the current report until it is published. So until that report is published, you cannot connect to those matrix that have been published into the service. So you need to have published first, and then you can connect to those matrix. Okay. And then just onto that, another thing that has been added on the desktop now is that you can actually make changes to the matrix. Once it has been published, you can make changes on the Power BI desktop and save them in the Power BI desktop, and those will be updated into the matrix that's on the service when you next publish. Okay. All right, and then coming into the September 2022 updates, one of the key updates that I liked from that is the mobile formatting, which has now gone generally available. Also, this is one of the features that have been improving with time. So every month Power BI does something to improve this, and now it's generally available, where you can now have bespoke reports designed for mobile that are separate from the desktop layout, and you can have them completely different in how they render in the mobile. Like you'll see in this example where they've got the navigation menu on the left-hand side, sorry, which is vertical versus on the app, which is at the top and it's horizontal. And those styles will not interfere with each other. So that's also a nice touch that they've added there. All right. And then on one of the last changes that came up in the September updates that I thought was cool is the cross-tenant data set sharing, which allows you to publish a report in your own data set and then expose that data set to a B2B partner so that they can also use that external data set in their own tenant to actually create their own composite models and then republish those as a single data set in their own environment where they can build their own reports. So this is also a nice functionality that came out in the September 22 updates. And in terms of having to get it working, you do need to have some tenant settings enabled for this functionality in order for you to take advantage of it. So it's also not one of those that comes out of the box ready. You do have to have some tenant settings that enable external sharing of data sets so that you can share those data sets with B2B partners and they can see them directly in their tenant. Okay. And then that is it for the Power BI updates. So in terms of the other section, these are the useful links for the sources where I got the news and updates information for today. And you can see those are according to the topics that we've covered. So if you do want to check out in terms of those sources and what they cover, you're more than welcome to use my links. And that brings me to the end of the news section.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Sia. Yeah, I always get excited when the news comes out on the Power BI websites. And one of the news items that I've been waiting for ages was that cross-tenant sharing. I got like unbelievably excited. Although I don't know if any of you have tried it, I can't find those 2 tenant settings that we're supposed to enable. I've looked and looked and looked. I've looked multiple times. So have any of you tried it, or have any of you had success, either here or online? No? I think it's a game changer.
I've also struggled with that settings, Finn.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it probably will be a phased rollout for the rest of us who have not yet seen it, but I also haven't seen that setting.
Yeah, so it's a preview function, and I think Sia is right, that they might have released it in North America and Europe maybe, but maybe in our area not yet, or something like that. Or maybe I haven't found the right place, but I've searched, I've looked everywhere. Tenant settings is obviously a very long list, and I've literally gone through all 50 of those things painstakingly, but I couldn't find it. Anyway, all right, cool. So we've done the prize, we've done the main section, we've done the news. We're now going to do the BI Flash, which is a short presentation. Anil is with us online. Thank you for joining us. Anil is actually dialing in from Durban. I've not met Anil yet, but he works here at Intellect. Actually, is a software engineer. He works mostly at Standard Bank. Anil, thank you very much for joining us. Just a little bit about him. He enjoys tennis and squash and the new craze, this paddle sport. Yeah, sounds like it. And he's also describes himself as he loves eating, and I'm glad he's not here to eat all of our pizza, although I don't see it. Oh, there it is in the back. Yeah, so anyway, Anil, over to you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, so just want to say Anil was expecting to have some technical difficulties with his internet, so he recorded a video in advance, and his expectation came true. So yeah, he is on the call, but it's fluctuating quite a bit, so I have the video with me. I'll share that now. Just before I do, Anil, you maybe just, oh yeah, let me just take off the spotlight here. Then you can just quickly say hi to everyone so that we at least know who's presenting. Oh, you're on mute, but we can see you. Hi.
Hi, everybody. Anil, yeah. Yeah, sorry, I would have given the presentation live, but yeah, my internet is a bit choppy. So thank goodness for the video.
Cool, thanks, Anil. Then, yeah, I'll start sharing the slide. Okay. Okay, I think what's important now is just knowing if the people on the call can actually hear the audio, but I think there's a setting. Just want to look at this. I think I might have to reshare so that I can share with audio. Yeah, share sound. There we go. Okay. Okay, and then just as soon as it, there's going to be an echo now.
Did the power go off? Okay.
Okay, just checking. Can the people on the call? No, it looks like it's still joined. Can the people on the call still hear us? Oh yeah, we just need to start the video of the projector.
Yeah, loud and clear.
Thanks for confirming, Kaylin. Yeah, the load shedding just hit us, and the generators just had to start. Yeah, it is starting up. Just waiting for the presentation to start. Well, the projector to start up. No, it is. It takes a while to warm up.
There we go.
Okay. Almost there. Just waiting for the projector to warm up a bit. I think that's good enough. Okay, let's go. I am still sharing, right? Yes.
Hi guys, and welcome to my.
Apologies, another technical issue here.
BI Flash.
Sorry, just need to get the sound right here. This needs to broadcast. Yeah.
All right, guys. While Rian and Stefan are just trying to work out the sound issues there. For those online, I'm hoping you can hear me as well as obviously people here. We are looking for volunteers or a volunteer for next session. It's on the visualization. You would take the model that Michael has just finished off and then take it to the next level, which is starting to put together some visualizations and so on. So are there any volunteers for that? We are appealing kindly. Don't be put off. Sorry. Okay, you could do it. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, I was about to say, look, it's not as scary as you think. Genuinely, if you have to present something, you actually have to learn that topic pretty well. So it's worth doing it. It will enhance your skills. And on top of that, you get to know more people. People get to know you. It's good for you just in terms of networking. It really is worth trying to do it. So it's right at the end of November. I think it's the 26th of November. It's obviously a Thursday. Do we have any volunteers from the online guys or here? Otherwise, we do have a backup presenter. He's not going to be overseas or anything like that. End of November. End of November. Okay. All right. Any volunteers? Anyone?
What's the topic again?
Visualization. Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. Pity about that, although we do have a backup through Michael's colleague James. That's cool. The other thing I wanted to ask just before we close, obviously we're going to come back to Anil's thing soon, was that I wanted to find out if there would be an interest for the participants to have a monthly user group rather than a every 2 month bi-monthly user group. That comes with some complexity because Stefan, Rian, Sia and I have full-time jobs, and so this thing is quite time-consuming to organize, and now we're doing it twice as often. That means we need community volunteers to help with the presentations because very often we'll end up having to present as well as organize. So happy to do it. There are plenty of topics. We really can do it once a month. We'd probably do it last Thursday instead of every second last Thursday every second month. But it would be something we'd consider for next year. But it really does need community volunteers. So I did see 1 or 2 hands up here. I mean, what is the general consensus? Would you be able to make it every month? Because we also don't want to do it if we get half the audience this month and half the audience next month. So what do you guys think? Maybe yes, definitely yes. Yeah, okay. It does seem. What about online? What are the people saying?
BI comes with so many
Yes.
new things and fun.
Well, that is actually the truth. I mean, we've got a list of things to talk about, and this whole year's series is already taken up the things, so we've got to wait till next year to start doing those new things, and that's got nothing to do with any of the new technology that comes out between now and then. Okay, all right, so we'll look to do that in the new year, but please try and step out of your comfort zone. If you're thinking of maybe doing a presentation, just take a leap forward and get hold of us, and we'll put you on the list. If you're keen but you don't have an idea, we can also help with that. And if you're keen but a little bit nervous, we can guide you through it. I can meet with you beforehand a few times, and we can just practice and get ready for it. So don't let any of those reasons put you off. Okay. All right, cool. I think that's enough from me. Is that all good to go? In which case,
I think so. There's 2 HDMI inputs here. Unfortunately, I didn't test it in advance.
Okay.
So I need the remote audience to just let me know if they can hear any audio as soon as I start playing. So if it's not this HDMI input, then it's the other one. So let's see.
Talk on Power BI Datamarts. My name is Neil, and I work for.
Okay, can the people on the remote audience hear? Oh, great. Okay, cool. Then we're good to go.
Intellect. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Cool. So let's discuss what's to come. So I'll firstly give an intro to Power BI Datamarts. Then I'll give my experience with Datamarts, which is a good 3 months of working with it. Obviously chat about the good, not so good, and some ideas. And then finally, we'll chat about my overall experience. Cool. So what is Power BI Datamarts? It's a self-service analytics solution. Basically, you're giving the power of the transformation step in the ETL process to the end user, so they can play around with the data, they can explore it, they can do whatever they want with the data. And from the developer's point of view, we just put the data there. So if you think of it as the ETL process, it's actually ELT. So we extract, we load, and then the transformation is done by the end user. Power BI Datamarts also allows for end-to-end data ingestion, preparation, exploration with the data. So, what you know and love about Power BI desktop is encapsulated more or less in Power BI Datamarts, which is cool. And you can explore the data using normal stock standard SQL, or you can use Visual Query, which is for those who want to experience a no-code way to query the data. Cool. So my experience with Datamarts, and I'll start with the good because, yeah, that's how most things should start. There are many ways to connect. So like in Power BI Desktop, you can connect to your Datamart as a Power BI dataset, which is pretty cool. Or you can connect to it like a SQL Server data source. And I'll explain those two in a moment. You can also interface with it using the XMLA endpoint, which is really nice. So if you want to control the data mart with refreshes and metadata changes, you can go ahead and do that. And especially if you use the element toolkit or even DAX Studio, yeah, you'll understand what I mean. Then there's 2 ways to wrangle with the data as an end user. So as I mentioned before, the no-code option is Visual Query. But for SQL fans, you can go ahead and query it like a SQL database. It has a similar look and feel as Power BI Desktop, which is nice. So that extends to the model view, the query editor, and even creating measures for that matter. Security is tight, and I wouldn't expect anything less from Microsoft. So the data mart itself must be shared with you, with other users or a group. And you have the benefit of configuring row-level security in the data mart as well. And something small, I noticed like whenever you run a query or load data using the transform data step, there's some neat stats of the running queries. So yeah, over here is just a small picture of what it looks like. So when you in Power BI Desktop, let's say you're searching for a data source and it's the data mart is your data source, you have 2 options. You can connect it as a normal Power BI data set, But the only thing is you can't actually add or remove data sources or tables to your data set or your model in general. That's the only bad part about it. However, to overcome that, you can simply connect it as a SQL endpoint. So what this means is Power BI, the data mart itself, is an actual SQL database that you can query. And you'll see that in the next picture, you can actually get the connection string to that database. So it's that long, confusing story over there. But in the data mart itself, there's an option for the server settings, and that's where you'll find it. And then on the top right, you'll see this SSMS, and you can just plug in that as your server name, and then make sure you have universal MFA for authentication and your username. Yeah, this is on the Sandbank tenant. So yeah, yeah, that is pretty interesting because a lot of this stuff was configured, and I was quite surprised out of the box. And lastly, that one picture over there, that's the actual connection. So those are tables that I know and recognize. And you'll notice that it isn't actually a table, it's actually a view. So think of it like a read-only table, if you will. So whatever queries you did in Power BI Datamart is basically the magic is that it gets transformed into a SQL database, and these are represented as views when you connect it as a SQL endpoint. Cool. Let's go here. And then as we discussed, we've got visual query. Sorry about the resolution, but we've got visual query and SQL query. SQL query is literally just writing SQL. And visual query is very similar to something like Data Factory or Synapse, where you've got blocks and stuff that you can connect and perform certain operations. So in a similar way, in this simple one, we've got our source, we've got the table. The table, I forgot to rename it, but the default table name is query. But we've got the table, and I just chose a choose columns option. But there's nice icons and stuff, especially if you're not familiar with SQL, it really helps. And I think that's a really nice addition. Cool. And then in terms of the look and feel, yeah, this looks very familiar to, this is actually from Datamarts. So that same vibe with the ribbons, the buttons, and all the things that you used to in Power BI Desktop. Cool. So onto the not so good. Yeah. So I experienced some really weird things while working with the Datamarts, and one thing that really bugged me was collaboration can be extremely problematic. So you can be the owner of a Datamart, and I found out that one colleague couldn't actually hit the transform data button in the Datamart, and because there was some permission issue, even though I shared it with her. So that was like, okay, why? Sometimes data sources will time out. Now, this is a crazy one. So sometimes when you're loading data, it'll just time out and you have to restart the Datamart. And by restart, I mean you have to go out of Datamart, make sure the ODBC connection, in this case, it was an ODBC, make sure the connection is okay, and then go back into the Datamart. And that's what I mean by restart. It was a very frustrating problem. Row-level security doesn't apply immediately. I did a test with this, and it only applied like maybe 10, 15 minutes later, and it was a small data set, so I didn't really understand why. This one is the worst one, where the query works in the preview, right? So you got your preview window, and it works perfectly, and it's like, cool, no problems. But then it breaks on the full load, and you have to start again. It just doesn't make sense. Like, why would you do this to us? But yeah, that really grinded my gears. So, gosh, I hope they fix it when it's generally available. Another thing, Power BI desktop queries doesn't necessarily translate into Datamart, and it's so weird because it uses the same engine. And what I noticed is that a query in Power BI desktop will run. All the columns and stuff will be fine in terms of data types. But then in Datamarts, you apply the same query, but then it complains about the data types. And I'm like, but why? It worked in Power BI desktop. Why wouldn't it work in Datamarts? So that's just something that I've figured out. And yeah, I was quite unfortunate to do that. Connecting to an ODBC source is quite problematic, but this might be particular to my project. Hopefully other people don't experience this as well. And then sometimes the prompts and the navigation can be quite unintuitive at times, and sometimes unresponsive. So yeah, good luck with that. Yeah, and then some ideas, I think if we can catch the errors but allow the load to happen. So I know this happens in Power BI Desktop, and it basically creates a separate folder for all the columns or data sets that were errored out. I think that would be a really cool addition. Importing row level security config. So basically whatever you define in row level security in Power BI Desktop, if it's possible to export that, maybe I don't know, I haven't Googled enough, but yeah, that would be really, really awesome. And then put that into Datamarts, because again, you can configure row level security from there. Yeah, but overall, not too bad. I did demo this to clients and colleagues, and they really like Datamarts. They love the ability to take the data in their own account and play with it and do whatever, and also add their own data sources if they connect via the SQL endpoint. Again, it addresses certain use cases really well, and the control is in your hands as long as you define row level security. That type of security issue won't be a problem. And the familiarity with Power BI Desktop really, really made the experience quite comfortable. The bugs are terrible, don't get me wrong. Like, as much as I love the experience, the bugs were really bad. And the collaboration is a must, in my opinion, especially if you've got a lot of analysts and developers working on this. Like, collaboration needs to be seamless. Queries breaking on full load, yeah, that's a Hulk smash moment, because you load like 1 million, 2 million rows, and then all of a sudden it just breaks and they just want to break your laptop. Yeah, that is my experience. And navigation can definitely be improved. But there's still hopes because it's still in preview. So I have no idea when it will become generally available. Hopefully somebody in the audience will know. And I'm pretty sure there are more features to come. But on that bombshell, I'd like to thank you for giving me some time to chat about Power BI Datamarts. Thank you. Bye.
Right, nicely done, Anil. Thank you. I thought that was great. We've also tried working with Datamarts ourselves. Also, I actually like that Hulk smash analogy, because one or two things we found are kind of a deal breaker at this stage. But it's in preview, and the point is they're trying to basically work out all the bugs on all of us who are trying it out and giving them feedback. So just keep giving the feedback to Microsoft, and they'll make it better, and then launch it officially, and we'll all be very happy. Anyway, we're at 6:30 now, so I think we must call it quits. Before I do that, say thank you again to Anil, thank you again to Michael, thank you again to Sia, and then a big thank you to Rian and Stefan for the technical and logistical assistance. I'm telling you now, if they weren't so clever, we would have been much later, and we would have had far more complexities, is what I'm trying to say. So thank you, gents. And thank you, obviously, for Intellect for sponsoring the drinks and the pizzas. All right. Thank you to all of you as well, both online and in person. Thank you, and we'll see you in November. Right.